Welcome, everybody, to our summer Help the Helpers. And we're so happy to have Doris back with us. Doris Brothers is going to talk about knowing and not knowing. And Dorothy, you're going to introduce Doris.
We're all happy to have Doris back again to share her ideas. She has a new book coming out that she's written with Jon Sletvold, and it's called Psychoanalytic um, Explore. Is it
Yes.
Explorations
Yeah.
of Embodied Relational Knowing, which I hope she's going to share a bit about that today. And other aspects, she's written many articles and books, which are in the flyer that you get. Please refer to that. Been very instrumental in finding the founder of different analytic groups. And something that is very meaningful to me, having met Doris at the school I worked at, St. John the Divine, in the 1980s, is to follow each other over time, kind of checking in with each other. And it's so meaningful to have people in your life that you can see your own growth. And there were periods of time we missed, but then more recently, coming back into each other's lives, it's been particularly meaningful to see the evolution of one's thoughts and personality. So I really welcome Doris coming today and look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Dorothy and Lynn. And I feel the same way, Dorothy. It's just delightful to catch up with you again. What I want to talk about today is one of my favorite themes, and that's uncertainty. And I guess I can't imagine that our need to feel certain in these uncertain times, um, I don't think it's ever been greater than it is right now, and and I think that you know the planet will the planet be destroyed? Is it being destroyed? Uh, the world is convulsing with violence all over the globe. Um, and there is just so much that we can't feel comfortable and familiar with, as if everything is somehow changing and uncertain. And what I have thought about in terms of uncertainty is that because that the uncertainty of our going on being, that going on being is the Winnicottian expression, that lies at the heart of trauma. And what we do when we're feeling uncertain is immediately, it's like a reflex, is that we try to make certain. And one of the ways that we try to make certain, unfortunately, is to glom on to a leader who has all the answers, who knows, you know, and, like our president is always talking about how smart he is and how he has all the answers. He knows. And the other way is to kind of simplify our experience because complexity adds uncertainty, and the simpler that life becomes, the more certain we feel. And one of the ways that we simplify is through the creation of binaries like good and bad, healthy, sick, and especially us and them, which today is, incredibly strong binary operating. But the search for certainty, I think, is also going on in our field, and we want somehow to cling to a theory that has certain answers that will show us the way. And one of the trends that seems to be leaning in that department in that direction is what we take from neuroscience these days. Now, look, I'm all for all of the discoveries that the neuroscientists make and help us understand. But one of the things I have this dreadful peeve. Really, it's becoming a pet peeve that people now are talking about their brains, and people are coming to me and saying, "Oh, my brain is doing this, and I need help with my brain." And I want to say I don't say it, but I want to say, I know you have a really sweet, lovely brain, and I would, be happy to help you with your wonderful brain. But I'm kind of in the business of helping people and not brains. So I really, but I think that this brain stuff is because it's easier. It's clearer and clear cut. If the wiring does this and you can see it on the screen, it's more certain than talking about the complexity of a whole person. And one of the ways that I have been wondering about our wish for certain, hoping to find certainty, is in embodiment. After all, Bessel van der Kolk said that the body keeps the score, right? So the trouble with that has to do with what Jon and I are finding out about embodied experience. And what we're discovering more and more is that bodies it's never just body. It's never just what are sensing on a bodily level. We can't access it without things being processed cognitively. And that's where the trouble comes in. So let me tell you a little bit about embodied relational knowing so that and I'll give you a couple of examples so you can think about it with me. So we say that, let me see if I'm going to read you a little bit. Okay, so the concept of embodied relational knowing is based on the idea that limitations in our ability to completely know ourselves and others, right? We can't know other people completely. We can't even know ourselves completely. We understand that 80% of our experience is unconscious, something like that. So we can't really know completely, but we develop these needs on the basis of the not knowing to completely know ourselves and others. And, sometimes these take the form of longings to be known by others and to know others as deeply and completely. And the impossibility of the fulfillment of these needs doesn't stop us from really wanting it, right? The concept also includes our needs not to be known and not to know ourselves and others, right? We all know about dissociation, and another way to think about an aspect of dissociation has to do with our need not to know that some horrible thing has happened. So we don't remember it, we don't know it, right? But Jon and I think that this not knowing is not just related to massive traumas, but goes on all the time. And sometimes the knowing and not knowing happen at the same time. And that is just adds to the mess. But we are very thankful to Roger Frie, who talks about how Germans during World War II living in Germany kind of knew what was happening to the Jews in the camps and didn't know at the same time. And that knowing and not knowing is something that also interests us a great deal. And one of the things about the body knowing is that often we know things, yeah, on a body level, but our need not to know may get in the way of our knowing that. So sometimes somebody gives us a compliment, for example, and we can feel the authenticity of the phrase and we know it and it lines up. But sometimes somebody's putting us on. They're saying nice things to us, but we need to know that we deserve that praise. And so whatever is happening on a bodily level that's telling us, no, they're putting you on, is overridden by our need to know, our need not to know that it's a lie, for example. It's all kind of mushed together. So there are other examples here that have to do with the ways that we know and don't know. Actually, I was talking to Lynn about a conference that I was just attending in Paris to honor the work of somebody called Mark Freeman. And this woman, her name is Danielle Spencer, writes about something called metagnosis. So I just wanted to tell you about metagnosis, which is when somebody discovers that they've been suffering with something their whole lives, and they didn't know it until they're all grown up, and somebody tells them, "Oh, you have been suffering from ADHD, or you're schizophrenic, or you're on the spectrum." And sometimes for some people, that knowing suddenly what you've been suffering from a very long time is incredibly helpful and makes sense of what you've been struggling with your whole life. But I have wondered about that, and I was talking to Danielle about this, and we had a wonderful talk because I've had some patients who have been very taken with the different fads that come along that seem to explain everything. I don't know if if you've had the experience. I think it was around in the 90s that everyone was borderline. I had patients coming in. I'm going to be very difficult because I'm borderline. And they were so relieved that they had this name for what was going on. Most of these people who said they were borderline were terribly traumatized people, and it was this diagnosis that borderline that helped them make sense of everything. But I have a patient who I think she has 6 siblings, and she is by far the most intelligent and talented person in the group. But this is a very competitive family and very well, they're mean to one another. And I have gotten the idea. So she has come to me and with every fad that has come along, she is sure that this explains all of her problems. And what we have beginning to understand is this her metagnosis of her clinging to these metagnoses or gnosis or whatever you say it, is her way of saying to her family, you see, there's something wrong with me. I'm not going to outdo you all. I'm impaired. I'm on the spectrum. I mean, very flimsy things like, oh, I didn't react when somebody was talking about, some terrible tragedy. I must be on the spectrum. I'm on the spectrum. That's why I've been having all these, troubles. But what we're understanding is that on another level, this metagnosis about what her ills are really is serving her to avoid the competition in her family and to have her place. So anyway, there are a lot of reasons that. Oh, I want to give you another example about just how sometimes. I mean, this is kind of obvious, I guess, but sometimes we assume that the body keeps the score when there is trauma. And I'm thinking about what happened when I was in a cab crossing 86th Street on Central Park West. And as we were coming, a car was turning to go into the transverse. And I had my two little children in the car, and I was very shaken. And so it was what was seemed to be an embodied experience was that every single time that I was crossing 86th Street and Central Park West, I would react as if a car was going to come in. This is PTSD, yeah. But when you think about it, no car was coming. I was reacting as if the car was coming. And we know that, the combat soldiers will come back from combat and hit the ground if they hear, a car backfire, because it's like, the sound of gunfire. But it's not. So the messages that we're getting are not, really, they may tell us that a trauma happened, but they're not telling us the truth about the score that is being kept now. And so there are all of these questions that come up about what score the body keeps. Bodies are uncertain. Humans are uncertain. Knowing is uncertain. It's unfortunate. How do we know that a patient is telling us the truth? How do we know that we're telling? Unfortunately, the answer is that we don't know, and we have to live. I think we have to live with some tolerance for not knowing and not knowing for certain, and allowing for the room for these difficulties to be in our world all the time. It's nasty. It would be nice if we could just be sure that all of this were ironclad and foolproof, but I don't think it is. I'm sure you could give me tons and tons more experiences of um, what what we can know, what we can't know, what we have to be uncertain about, and or not. So, how's that, Lynn?
Oh, wonderful. It brings up a lot of questions.
Okay, I would love to hear them.
So this is our time for discussion. Could I be the
Yes.
first one? I love what you're saying, Doris, about what this score is. What do we mean by the score?
Mm-hmm.
What do we mean by the truth? What is the truth? Is the truth always something that's factual? Or are there truths that have nothing to do with facts or occurrences or history, like hitting the ground when there's a backfiring is expressing a truth, but not a factual truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings up for me the focusing idea of everything that we say and the words we use being not a representation, but a handle for a much, much larger thing. And then the much, much larger thing is something we can't truly know. We can't fully get our brains, our arms, our hearts around it, but it points in a direction.
That's such a good way to put it, Lynn.
That one more little piece there about focusing uh, orientation is looking for this felt sense of the relational bodily knowing that uh, we can learn to pick up on. But then what is it saying? That's like the confusion of tongues. It's speaking, our felt sense is speaking, but it's not speaking in the language of um, linear thinking and logic and uh, all that explicit stuff. It's speaking in the language of the implicit. And how do we tell the difference between, what's speaking about the implicit uh, when people are deeply convinced that they were molested uh, as babies? Do how do we know whether that deep felt sense is saying something that happened factually, or is it saying something that happened implicitly that's just as powerful, just as influential, just as shaping as if it happened factually? So we don't know the difference between the messages that are factual and the messages that are symbolic. And does it matter? That would be another question.
Yeah, that's the important question. Does it matter? And I think that for me, Lynn, if I can say that it matters only to the extent that I can serve as a witness to somebody's suffering, whether or not I um, buy what I am being told happened, can I be there in a way that says, you need this to be true? And whether or not I need it to be true, I know it to be true, doesn't matter so much if my being there while you are now needing this to be true is the important thing. Does that make any sense, Lynn? Do you know what I'm getting
Yeah.
at? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, I was thinking as you were speaking that, sometimes poetry, Dorothy knows about this, and art experiences kind of say things in a way that eludes our needing not to know what is being conveyed. Uh, that it kind of gets around it in a certain way, and in that realm, somehow we can accept more than we can if somebody just says it straight out. Is that what you were getting at too, Lynn? I think so, a little bit.
Yeah, that metaphors and images and the language of the implicit that's right on that border between explicit and implicit, can be a way that we can tolerate knowing or processing something that our organisms just can't process in an explicit way.
That's right. We need to make room for that kind of, as you say, right on the edge of, factual and not factual. I think, Astrid,
That's
did
true.
you?
I want to say something there. What I tended to do over the years is that I would not question a certain quality of experience a person brings, a felt sensing of threat or having been violated or description of symptoms. I would not doubt that. But what I would offer that we start exploring that cautiously, because the family history or the family as a whole living organism can change if there is molestation or abuse, saying my father, my uncle, my whoever violated me, abused me, or whether there's I am with you in sensing, experiencing, sensing there was a threat, there was a violation, but supporting somebody not to immediately go into a symbolization of that kind. I know it has been that. And I've started asking questions. For example, have you had any operations as a kid? What is your medical history? Because, for example, if a child swallowed something and is taken to hospital and you pump things out of the stomach, you may have symptoms of an oral, what you call it?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have the word in English at this moment. So it's like I'm trying really to support somebody to keep it open, because once you say, oh, this is the perpetrator in my family and I feel violated by this person, this shifts the whole family. So I'm really taking a lot of care, exploring together with this person, well, how their life went. I've certain things I'm asking now, to understand how there could be different sources also, because it's such a grave thing. So, and coming to the ambiguity, I really make certain in this therapeutic relationship that the person, the client, the patient knows I believe her experience and I believe her symptoms. I'm not at war with anything this person says, but can we be a little bit open about what happened? There definitely something happened, but maybe we don't yet know. And I found that a very important approach. The word came now. Sometimes a medical procedure can be experienced as rape, and it is in a sense. So, and there were many examples I had where people were desperately looking for who molested me, my family, and it was a medical history. So I really want to offer that as a
Astrid, that's so interesting. It's so interesting. But it's your openness to the possibility and introducing the idea that there are other ways to think about something, to feel about something, to know about something. And I often find that when I have been there in the right way with someone who is really searching to find out what happened, that not only am I able to tolerate not knowing for sure, but my patient becomes more able to bear not knowing for sure exactly what happened, when it happened, and if it happened. And that I think is an incredibly healing process, not only for them, but for me. You know, that leaving the space around the knowing. But I like your
I'm believing they're experiencing and they are felt sensing.
yes,
That is very important. Yeah.
sure, sure. I like that a lot. Other reactions, thoughts?
Eric?
Yes, yes, Eric.
Oh, thank you. Doris, because of your background, I kind of want to link our conversation here with intersubjectivity, which you're sort of subtly pointing to. Um, I have the experience of sensing in my better moments a sort of felt sense in the client.
Mhm.
And I try to gently lead there. And I have a client who's been with me for, I don't know, 11 years, he said, who I mentor now because he can't afford me. And he comes in dissociating pretty wildly. And I just ask him to kind of settle with me and look at me. Just, I've started actually saying, let's be relational. Look at me. Look at me. Just look at me. And he shifts a little.
Uh,
And then and I'm saying, how is that? And he goes, I'm dissociating, which is sweet and funny because he was dissociating so wildly before. But my sense is what he's doing is he's shifting.
uh,
And then we've made tea and we're sitting down. And through a process of many things where he's creating a very familiar story. His stories are very familiar and strong. We come back to the present, and it's frightening for him.
mm,
And this is very similar to what you're saying about the uncertainty. So, and towards the end of the session, he's saying, I feel sad.
mm,
I feel sad. I don't know what to do with this sad. And there's something so big, I can't face it.
mm.
And I'm saying, we don't have to face it. Let's hold sad together. Let's just hold sad. And
So yeah, that sounds so beautiful, Eric, that you just allow him, this person, to be with you in a way that helps.
well, I'm learning this from you and from Lynn and from everyone here and other people in the focusing community that and I'm in grad school in mental health counseling, although I've been doing this kind of similar work for a long time.
Ah,
Uh, but that it's the being relational itself
mhm.
is an ingredient that moves. It moves.
Yeah.
It makes safe. And you know, this is your field. What I'm trying to talk about in my clumsy way is your field. And I'm wondering if you can say something more lucid about.
I think you were incredibly lucid, and um, I think that yes, I mean the idea of connecting in whatever. I just want to say there are sometimes people who don't need, are too frightened to feel connected to me in the beginning, and I don't feel the need to emphasize our connection uh, for people who need to feel that there's sort of, walking in there. They've come because they need help. I'm there, but the idea of really connecting with me is not possible. And maybe they are able to talk in a very, highly intellectual way about this or that or the other. But really knowing that I'm there and that I'm there for them is way too scary because of what's gone on. And so it sometimes takes a while for me to let them be alone with me, that is helpful. And do I know that eventually we'll connect? No. I'm hopeful that we will. But do I really know for sure that this is going to be a process that will connect me to the person? Mm-mm. I think that the more that I can accept, yeah, maybe it's going to happen. It would be so nice if this, highly intellectual person and I will, be able to really feel together and be together in an intimate way. That would be really nice, but maybe it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting that, in focusing oriented psychotherapy in Gene Genlin's book, he's talking about our interpretation is not what we need. And the client just repeating the emotional cycle endlessly is not what we need. And so there's a way of being with that attends to the felt sense.
Mhm.
And that feels on the verge of intersubjectivity.
Mhm. Sure.
And it seems what we're invited to do.
Mhm.
And yet
It,
it is accelerating. There's an accelerant. Lynn, you had something?
yeah, it seems, Eric, like you're also pointing to the intersubjectivity of knowing, that it matters a great deal whether the whether the therapist, what kind of experience and what kind of feelings the therapist has about whatever is being spoken about. How how does the therapist experience, for example, we were using early violation, sexual violation as an example. Of course, it's everything, but you know, how am I with that? What happened in my family? How how do I um, how do I interpret all of this almost infinite, implicit, and how does it come through to me in explicit language of what happened
Yeah.
uh, to people, what happened to me, what happened to the family. So that intersubjectivity piece is always so important. That idea that it's the therapist's subjectivity is just as much in there as the patient's subjectivity. So thank you for sort of just pointing us, reminding us about the intersubjective um,
Yeah.
systems part of that.
And then you're reminding me about something else, and that is that what gets known um, between me and a patient, either about myself or about the person, would not necessarily be the same thing that got known if somebody else were sitting in the room with the person. my lifetime, my experience, my way of being influences. I think that this is what Lynn is getting at, Eric, that what is known, the context, which includes me and my life and my history and what's on my mind and heart as I come into the session, is affecting what happens between me and the other person. And and if that person sees somebody else, the very same things that are supposedly known may be thought of in a very different way, known differently, that there are many different ways to know or not know.
As you're all talking, and as you spoke in the beginning, Doris, about this whole concept of the need for certainty and the whole idea of truth and what is truth, I've really been hit lately along the way in my life, but particularly recently with clients and in my family and in my daughter, multiple truths, and that there isn't one truth, and how easily I can get convinced that my truth is right and the other person is missing something. And to really give this space, what that means, to really give this space and step back enough to honor that other person's way of seeing. I just find that challenging at times. I mean, especially easier with a client, but harder in a family.
Very much harder in a family or with a loved one or, someone we're interacting with and someone who is important to us. And we want to see eye to eye. We want to feel this flow of empathy, but in a way, it's based on a sense of sameness and knowing. And sometimes that person's experience, way of being different, makes the same thing that happened seem very different. And what is true is the way of sameness true and the way of difference not true? I see another hand, and it's Liz.
Yes, hi. This is so interesting. So many different things. What's forefront to me right now is safety. So the difference between uncertainty, I don't really know, but it'll probably be okay. And I don't really know. And it's probably going to lead to my annihilation. That to me underlies the tolerance of uncertainty. So that was one thing. And then the other was the idea of, which goes into safety, that the patient, let's say the client or anybody, doesn't really know. Okay. And let's say if it's a situation of abuse or something. But maybe they've grown up with somebody who does really know. And Doris, you were talking about you used to be everybody was a borderline. Now everybody's on the spectrum. Right. And part of that, and I know I'm going all over the place.
No.
Go into social media, and if you see what young people who are involved in going to therapy and trauma, of course, is a huge word and concept. Another huge concept in the culture is gaslighting,
Mm-hmm.
which has so much to do with this topic of
Yeah.
uncertainty. And people want to know because they've been taught not to trust their own reality because they say they have been gaslit. They have been told that when they have come up with this is the truth, they're told that they're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I just want to say that the whole notion of safety and unsafety
yes.
so powerful here. And, whether we can accept an uncertain outcome is very different if the one of the outcomes is our annihilation, as you're pointing out, that there are situations in which the unsafety is so profound that we cannot bear it, that it is too devastating.
And this is why I have a problem with the popular Eastern Buddhist people who kind of take a stance of a moral high ground in a way that we're supposed to be more comfortable with uncertainty. And I don't know that attention is always being sufficiently paid to how dangerous
That's
it
such
can
a good point.
be for many people. At first, you need that grounding of okayness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you can go into these fancy places of tolerating uncertainty with Pema Chodron and all these people.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
that's all my
thank you, Liz. You're raising a very important issue, and that has to do with safety and
thank
danger.
you.
Yeah. Marvin.
Thank you, and thanks, Doris. Two things. First, to Liz, I was listening to that word safety, and a few of the words came to me. One is confidence.
Yeah.
Is it safety or is it not confident enough? And then it went to simply, is it just hesitation? It could be just an hesitation. There's no safety issue. In that sense, that was the first thing I wanted to comment on.
Uh-huh.
The
Could you
second
say a
thing
little
is
more about confidence? Say a little more.
uh, confidence, meaning when we know and when
Confident
we
that you know.
don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
know. There
Yeah.
is the confidence level is not the same. When we know, we feel more confident. So when we don't know, there's an hesitation, which
Mm-hmm.
is which is a lack of confidence, but not a
Yeah.
moral kind of judgment. It's
Yeah.
just that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So the second thing is to go back to what matter, and building on what Eric said. Was it I feel sad or I am sad? I feel tired or I am tired? Or I feel lost or I am lost? So,
Mm.
so those little words,
Yeah.
what may matter maybe is what is truer to the experience of a person at the moment.
Yeah.
And guiding it towards no, it has to be I feel may force. Someone was referring to that. You don't even trust yourself. Now you have to trust what someone is telling you what your experience is.
Yeah.
You don't listen to your own self understanding of what's happening in you, and you're replacing it with some authority from somewhere
Yeah.
that decides what it is to be.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I wrote, I was putting some notes, was when we say I feel and I am, it seems like it's not the same which is expressing. Like when we if we consider IF as internal family system, we say parts, whatever it might be. I'm not referring to it as such, but I'm just saying when I say I feel sad, sometimes it's so true when I say it for me, and sometimes I can't say it. I have to say I am sad.
Yeah.
But I don't know if who is speaking to who, what is speaking at that, what is expressing inside. Not as being a how do you say that? Someone that's classified as a condition, a psychosis or whatever it might be. But really, that experience of there could be different expressions of the same.
Yeah.
Different expressions, like yeah, I don't. I'm
No, I
now
think that
better stop here. Yeah.
Marvin, you are pointing to something that is so important, and that is the willingness to give up one's confidence in one's reality. I am sad is a state, rather than I feel sad, but maybe I'm not. Is a very, very different state. I'm just thinking about, how I, when I suppose that I am needed as a kind of rock of certainty, of to be an to create an experience that was missed of somebody who was a protector, an idealized figure in self psychological lingo. I'm not going to say, "Oh, you feel." At a time like that, oh, you're sad. Yes, yes, you're sad, is what's absolutely needed in that moment. Maybe it will change, maybe it won't. But there is a huge difference between I feel sad and I am sad. And it is it's like a different world from I feel sad. That kind of knowing. And maybe there is an important place for that kind of knowing. I think about the world that we're in. I know that what is happening in America today is spoiling all that was good and beautiful in the world before Trump took office. I believe that. I know it. And if somebody tells me, "Oh, you feel that way," I'll say, "Bullshit. I know it." It's maybe I should be humble and say, "Oh, I feel as if the country is being destroyed." But it's very, very hard for me to accept that right now. Thank you, Marvin. That's an important consideration for sure. Yeah, but everybody so far has raised such important aspects of the certainty and uncertainty of knowing. I'm so grateful. Pauline.
Good morning. Good morning, Doris. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of the richness of the conversation. And as I was listening, different things, occurred to me or, yeah. I think mad, bad, or sad were the three words that I was sort of doodling with. I'm either mad, bad, or sad. And really, it's I was really struck, Doris, by the what if the score the body keeps is wrong, and it's kind of even it's not even the body, it's the soul, all of the things that I was told that was the world or what I was in relation to, it's all I am discovering. I have interpreted, so I'm not even blaming anyone, but it is the sense of maybe grieving around the loss of not believing or believing what was told to me, psychology, religion, everything. I was trying to make up for what it was that I wasn't, so really just it's the identity of saying, well, actually, there is nothing wrong with you. I'm okay, you're okay. Let's start with that as a bottom, as a beginning, an opening, so yeah, it's allowing all of the impact of believing that, or not being certain about that, that you're okay, I'm okay, so yeah, so that's
Well,
it. Yeah.
I absolutely adore your bringing in the idea of our loss and grief over what was once something that we believe with certainty.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was telling Lynn and Dorothy about a talk I gave in Boston to celebrate the work of a wonderful writer and thinker, and Mark Freeman, whose work I recommend highly.
Okay.
But I wrote that I came into the field of psychoanalysis with great confidence, Marvin, and a great certainty that I would be with people who had been well analyzed, who would be open-minded and welcoming and ready to hear new ideas. And of course, they would eschew, self-aggrandizement. And oh my God, I was rudely awakened from this fantasy, this wished for certainty
Yes.
that this was the world I was entering.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel almost as if my career involves a certain grieving over that loss, among other losses that you are alluding to. What religion or our parents' truths that we have to give up. It feels very sad to me to think about that. I love that you mentioned that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Doris. Lovely.
And well, also, Pauline, you're bringing up identity is so important.
Yes. Yes.
That I identify with what I believe.
Yes, and trying to make it better, and the it being the person and myself, it just can't be made better. I'm good enough, But it's that. I think James Baldwin called it. Was it James Baldwin? It's kind of a trigger, but it's kind of like needed. Vomiting up the filth that he almost believed about himself, So it is like he interject and all of that. So it's and maybe identity with community as well. It's like, let's not doubt each other. We're good enough. Yeah. So that's me for today. Yeah.
Beautiful, Pauline. And thank you for emphasizing that part, Lynn.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh my God, all these riches. Yeah, wonderful. Just marvelous to hear.
The vomiting up seems like a very important part.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I'm thinking that if we want to do breakout rooms, this would be the time if we want to go into small groups and then come back at, why don't we have 15 minutes and come back at 9:30? Does that sound good? Or should we have 20 minutes, 15 minutes? Okay, because we want to talk to you, Doris, as much as we can. So let's come back in 15 minutes. And Doris and I will stay here in the big room. If anybody wants to stay with us, they're welcome to. Otherwise, see what comes in knowing and not knowing, and what the score is in your breakout room. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
So what happened in your breakout rooms? What did you come up with? I'm so curious about Mary and Astrid and, and Marvin, Jim, who had something to share.
Yeah, Susan and I were enjoying Doris's ability to really let us know what she experiences and kind of cast this open net. We appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I was just talking to Lynn about the capacity, the fun of playing when you're dancing on the edge of knowing and not knowing, that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love that phrase, dancing on the edge of knowing and not knowing. That would be a good title, Doris, for one of your talks.
Marvin, I worked with Marvin, brought out the idea of suffering as a power. I was sharing something about growing up in a family where there was definitely the older sister power, and I was like, where was I?
Wow.
And I love that, like suffering as a power, as a capacity. The capacity to suffer is really important, and we were talking about that. That
It
not
really is.
everybody has the capacity to suffer.
Yeah.
And then the whole idea of the polarity of the lightness and the play that can help balance that out. And that's kind of where I am now, like trying to provide more.
Dorothy, can you go closer again?
Oh,
Because your
thank you.
mic is so
Yeah. Thank
something.
you. Thank you, Liz. I'm trying to balance out the suffering with the play and the lightness and have less heaviness. So it just helps to have like suffering, to see a treasure in that. It just, that in itself lightens the sense in the body of one who suffers. And that happened. I was telling Marvin, and I told Doris and Lynn that I was spent the week in Costa Rica, and that part of myself was really invited to come out, the play. So I'm just thinking of when you say play with concepts and language, play. I'd love to spend more time with that. The absence of play and the invitation to invite play in, and what that means intellectually and physically and somatically.
Yeah. There's one thing about knowing and suffering that occurs to me. When we are in pain, we know we are in pain. There is a knowing of pain that seems unshakable. There is, Marvin, it is the I am in pain, not I feel that I'm in pain. The pain seems to push us into a kind of certainty. There are very few other things that do that. I mean, maybe orgasm pushes us into some kind of knowing ecstasy or something, but there is something about the knowing of pain that is, I don't know. I'm not somebody very fond of the word absolute, but here we go. I'm just curious. Wonderful thought, the power of suffering. Great. I wish I would love to have that conversation go on for a while. Yeah, Susan.
Can you say, I mean, maybe you don't want to there's no time, but I just wonder if you could say a little bit more about what you mean by the, were you speaking of it within a therapeutic clinical context or just in general?
In general is, what was on what was stirred for you?
Oh, well, I guess in my mind was a client of mine who will not stop suffering because she says that would let her parents off the hook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's so uncommon either,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but that phenomenon of that's your only power in a way. See what you did to me.
Yeah.
It seems like the power of a self state. That's the thing I'm thinking, is that one self state can have this totality, but it's that self state. And so that opens up a lot of things.
I love the idea, not the idea, the concept that we're sold. The reason we know Jesus loved us is that he suffered for us
Oh, yeah.
on the
That's so
cross.
interesting.
Pain equals suffering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But the idea that one uses, one's suffering gives us a certain power in a relationship is really, really interesting. I have been very interested in the work of Foucault on power. He talks about power and knowing and links them together. But the idea that suffering can shift the power in a therapeutic relationship is very interesting. Liz, if your idea of healing is to get your patient not to cling to suffering, whoa, that sounds like a power struggle going on there. Huh?
Well, also, I was thinking of my own particular background of the Jewish mother who says, I'll just sit in the dark. Don't worry about me. And suffering and guilt and guilting people and
Yeah, that's really good. Actually, in our book, Jon has a case in which a patient said that she had been through the wars and refused to be helped by him, and so he sent her to someone who specialized in combat trauma. She stayed with him for about 3 minutes and returned to Jon because that was not the kind of suffering that the kind of war that she wanted to fight, and she just wanted to win the battle with Jon that she could not be healed, and so she left treatment triumphant because she had won the power battle. Yeah, very interesting. I don't think that was the kind of suffering power that you are alluding to.
Right, the
So that's it, but-
suffering and protest. And I want to hear what you want to say, Marvin, but I also don't, Susan had
Okay.
something to say.
Okay.
And so I wonder after Marvin and Susan, then we might have our poem because we're almost out of time. I think we only have 2 minutes.
Okay. Susan.
Well, I felt inspired a bit further back. It wasn't about the power of suffering, though I sure know that. I know that in myself. But when I was a young person, that was my identity, I think. And I remember, well, what I guess I wanted to say was I think I was a very unconscious, sort of dreamy, kind of hardly very wool gathering person. But suffering would intensify something for me. I would feel alive. And I'd actually feel better after a bout of suffering. I'd feel more here. So that's what I wanted to speak for
Wonderful,
that part.
wonderful, wonderful, Susan. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
very
much-
important.
So much to think about.
And Marvin,
line
do you
with
want
what
to
Susan-
say
yeah.
what you were going to say before we have our poem?
Yeah, I'll be quick. In line with what Susan is saying, it seems like suffering mentally brings power. We suffer in the head, it's power, but when we suffer in the body, it's delight.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Wow. Dorothy, you want to read us our poem?
Oh, it's a good one.
This poem is absolutely one of my favorites, and it came back to me last week. I hope you just take in all the imagery and be with it like I've been. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for hundreds of miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you. And Doris, thank you so very much.
Oh, it was a great pleasure, and I really appreciate everyone's comments so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And this will be on YouTube, so anybody that wants to sort of look at our conversation and the strands that we brought out, you can see it again. So bye-bye, and we hope to have you back soon, Doris.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. If you want me, I'm yours. See you guys.
Wow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.